And we are back to talk about some more Ice and Fire. But first, Preston wanted to talk about Bran 2 because you noticed a couple of inconsistencies in Bran 2 and just overall stuff that doesn't make any sense. And
Well,
of course, we're here
well,
with Trey, by the way. Hello, Trey.
Hi, it's good to be here.
no, well, I don't know I had my Brand two going over Brand two, and Brand two is a very interesting chapter in that it's so fucking filled with errors and retcons. I'm sorry for my voice; it's completely screwed up from a cold and blowing it out from talking too loud and things like that. So I am I'm all fucked up, but ready to talk about how like crazy Brand 2 is. It's just so I convinced Trey to reread the chapter, and he took some notes on how screwy the whole thing is.
You're right that it's like the most retconny of the Game of Thrones chapters so far. There's a lot of stuff and like a lot of like weird, like you can tell that things have been changed, and I don't know, it doesn't flow that well.
Yeah, I kind of think that George had such a good idea of Bran falling from the tower and it being such a shock that he's just like, well, the rest of the chapter is just filler to get up to that point, and that I don't have to worry about it because it's certainly not as good as, even though it's so famous, I don't think it's as nearly as good as many of the chapters around uh, um, it in the placement of the story. So, but I mean, it's obviously not a bad chapter, but like there's so many weird aspects to it. But I don't know, especially the conversation at the end. The conversation at the end is just so screwy, but
Even on the
it's,
first page, we got the I don't know. I wrote this down in my notes, like the Knights of the King's Guard, and how
yeah, the Knights of the
almost every
Kingsguard are
name
all
listed
screwed
there
up.
is kind of like a mess up.
Serwyn of the Mirror Shield, right? Like, Serwyn of the Mirror Shield is not a Kingsguard, but he's been put in with the Kingsguard. Sir Rhyme Redwine, we don't know anything that he did, but he's considered one of the greatest knights, even though at no point ever we're ever told like what he did and why he would be in there. Um,
Because
yeah,
at this point, like Serwyn of the Mirror Shield is supposed to be a King's Guard, right? Like, because Sansa makes the same mistake.
she does. So it's clearly like a retcon.
Yeah.
Like they could have made Serwyn of the Mirror Shield like one of Aegon the Conqueror's Kingsguard or something, but instead they made him first men kind of thing.
Why do you think he would change that? Like, what's the point of that? It's just such a weird, like, he created a problem for himself.
That's a really good point. I don't know why.
Because why not have him just be the guy in the Dance of the Dragons? Like, why not? Why not have him be with Sir Byron Swan? Just reuse the character.
I mean, that's the thing is he looking for, I mean, do you think that originally he's thinking like that Sir Byron Swan was Sir One of the Mirror Shield, and then he just screwed up the whole thing?
Maybe the conversation with Tyrion and Halden just worked so, like, it flowed so well and it was so nerdy that he liked it.
Let me see here.
Because what we know about Sir William Mirrored Shield in Game of Thrones is that he used the shield to defeat a dragon, and then he saved Princess Darissa
Darissa
from the
from
giants,
Giants.
which is like a Targaryen sounding name.
Right. So maybe the Giants aspect, he's like, oh, I had him save a woman from Giants.
How could I
So
work that?
how can I work that in? But you could have had Aegon go to the wall or one of the kings go to the wall. But then I'm trying to think like when, you're right that it's not until the conversation in A Dance with Dragons with between Tyrion and Halden that they even like get into it. So I think you're right that it's that conversation that he decides to retcon everything.
That's so weird. So he was like, the conversation's so good that I gotta retcon my whole lore for like several books. That's so odd. It's so
Yeah, yeah.
weird.
Some people were so. I was also commenting about the weirdness of the second paragraph that some people are like, so the first paragraph is about the hunt, right? And then the next paragraph is Bran had been left behind with Jon and the girls and Rickon. But Rickon was only a baby and the girls were only girls, and Jon and his wolf were nowhere to be found. Bran did not look for him very hard. And so the paragraph, the first time I read it, and I think it sounds like these are reasons why Bran is left behind. Like this is the reasons why they were left behind, because Rickon was a baby and the girls were girls and Jon was nowhere to be found. But in fact, it's like Bran is lonely. And so he'd been left behind with Jon and the girls and Rickon. And then the next sentence is why he wasn't hanging out with Rickon. Rickon was only a baby. And he was not hanging out with the girls because they were girls. And he was not hanging out with Jon because Jon was nowhere to be found. And then Bran didn't look for him very hard. Like, that's the proper way to interpret it, that Bran was left behind and lonely. But the context and everything makes it sound like
the reasons
they were left behind, right?
To make it flow better, it would say like, and Jon was a bastard. That would have made it flow better,
right?
And it would fit with Jon's story for his like resentment of being a bastard and stuff.
For him being left behind, or you switch it and say like, Bran was lonely. You know, you could say something like Bran was lonely as he was left behind, and then you'd kind of understand it. But you know, it's definitely just kind of it's unusually clumsy and clunky for George R.R. Martin, considering like we know his writing abilities and we know like they're incredible, but he fucked this paragraph up really kind of bad, in my opinion. But so there's a lot of little things like that. And then most of the chapter is this long description of Winterfell and how much Bran loves climbing. And which
there's a lot of like geography of Winterfell, like connections between places that is not factored into the story.
Somebody was pointing puberty. Sorry, somebody was pointing out that that actually it's kind of similar to when Cat goes to the Eyrie. That there is a long, ridiculously descriptive layout of the Eyrie that's not really used. Like, it's not really necessary to know all of these different things, like the names of the way stations, and like, who cares?
Oh yeah.
But that it was just setting, and George was writing setting, and you're like, well, how come he doesn't do that for the Red Keep? Like, we don't know what the fucking Red Keep like really looks like, you know, like the layout very well. And they're just like, I don't know.
And you're so right, because now we left the Eyrie and we're probably never coming back because we have no reason to go back.
Right. You know, so
I guess it's lore. Like he is, because he wants to visit these locations. Like he really, like, I think he desperately wants to visit Casterly Rock and stuff because he's put so much thought into it.
But yeah, definitely.
We're not going in there anytime soon. I this is where I realized. So I was curious about like the first keep, and that it's like the oldest part of the castle. It's squat and round fortress. And I like looked at whenever the keep is mentioned, the first keep is mentioned in the series. I didn't realize that the first keep is the entrance of the crypts. Like it's directly above the crypt. I didn't realize it. So it's like also saying that it's the oldest part of Winterfell, and also the crypts are the oldest part of Winterfell.
Yes.
Didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. But what's funny is that it's like, you know, it's cold. Like back then they were like, why even have the geothermally heated like pools? But it may be that the first keep was built back when like Winterfell was in a warmer area, and that you know, that the earth is different now, and so now it's cold, and so when they rebuilt Winterfell they had to build it on top of the geothermal springs or something.
There's like so much stuff, odd stuff about the first keep, like littered throughout the series, or in a lot of the world books. I know the world books are kind of like not really written by George, but there's like 2 or 3 instances where they bring up the first keep, and that it's like the fact that it's round and that it's dating is weird. Like,
right, wasn't there the whole thing about that in older, like it's harder to build things round, right? And the idea is that building things square is easier, But if you build things square, when siege engines throw like stones at your wall, all of the momentum of that stone is going to hit into the wall. While if it's round, it'll ricochet off easier, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Jamie brings it up in Dance with the Raven Tree Hall.
yeah.
And you're supposed to think about, because it's brought up in the world books, because in the world books, I'll read it. It says, the oldest of these is talking about Winterfell, a long abandoned tower, round and squat and covered with gargoyles. And this like matches Bran's description. Has become known as the first keep. Some take it to mean that it was built by the first men, but Maester Kennett has definitively proved it could not have existed before the arrival of the Andals, since the first men in early Andals raised square towers and keeps. Round towers came later. And it's also brought up later in the same book too, where when it's talking about Storm's End, when it says Storm's End is surely an old castle, but when compared to the ruined ring forts of the first men, or even the first keep of Winterfell, which a past maester in service to the Starks examined and found that it had been rebuilt so many times that a precise dating cannot be made. So it's like brought up twice, which is very weird.
Yeah. So it's pretty clear that there's something about the dating that's weird. Like, that, and I think it's the idea that our whole concept of history for Westeros is off. That there's clearly an advanced civilization that exists at some point, and then things regress and they get all their dating off, this getting back to like when they switched from bronze to steel and things like that. I think the first keep is definitely part of that. Like someone sitting there going, it doesn't make sense that the keep is round. It must be later. And it's actually they were advanced back then, and they built a round keep.
You're right that it's like Thousand Worlds stuff, like interregnum idea. Yeah. I didn't think of it that way. Yeah. Because I was thinking it like Bran the Builder is like warged by Bran, or what is it? Skin changed by Bran.
Time traveling Bran warged, became Bran
future
the Builder,
knowledge
started building round keeps and shit. Yeah. And he built Storm's End too, and So what else did you notice? I thought it was really weird that there's gargoyles too, but yeah.
I put Jamie becoming Hand. I always thought it was weird that Jamie is like, Cersei wants Jamie to become Hand, and it's like weird. It's like, okay, it's Cersei, but then like Robert wants Jamie to be, like, threatens to make Jamie Hand. Is like, why would Jamie ever be Hand? Like Robert doesn't like Jamie.
This conversation,
it would make sense to me because Cersei's probably putting it in Robert's head. I guess Jamie's schedule probably doesn't meet up with Cersei's, where maybe she wants to spend more time with him, and I guess she might. But how would that make sense once Jamie is Kingsguard?
He'd be busy.
Yeah, like he'd be.
Well,
very,
some people were Kingsguard and Hand at the same time. Ryan Redwine, for example, Kristen Cole. But here's the thing, or Barristan Selmy to Daenerys. However. So let's get into this conversation, because this conversation is bonkers weird. So the first thing Bran hears is, I do not like it, a woman was saying. You should be Hand. Now, first of all, it's really ridiculous that they're even having this conversation right here and now. Like, they should have known, like everyone else, that Robert was going north to ask Ned to be Hand. Like, didn't everybody and their brother like assume that? Wasn't it not a shock? Didn't Catelyn assume that? Didn't Ned assume that? Didn't everybody assume that? So like Cersei is sitting here, and I think it's like weeks after he's been requested. So they're having this conversation like 2 months after like Jon Arryn's dead, like being like, I don't like it. You should be Hand. Like everyone knows that Ned's going to be Hand. Why are they having this conversation now? But also like, why would Jaime Lannister be chosen as Hand? Like that's.
Well, why not like Tywin as Hand? Like if you're going to be a Lannister, why not Tywin? He's more competent.
Yeah, absolutely. But it'd just be like the natural assumption to me is when Jon Arryn dies, you're like, okay, Jon Arryn was one of Robert's best friends. So who would be next? Well, it would probably either be one of his brothers or his other best friend, Ned Stark. You know, like that's exactly where my mind would go. But
Well, you're right. Like, why Jamie is hand? My one assumption on that is so Cersei can be hand because if Jamie's hand, he's not really hand. It's Cersei, and she wants that power. So there it is.
oh, sure, but I mean, the only thing you can say here is that Cersei is fucking bonkers and she's so crazy, but she's not that crazy because Robert mentions the fact that he's going to make Jamie hand
Right.
once he gets angry with Ned. So she's clearly not that bonkers. Like, it's a really stupid idea that Jamie Lannister
that's
would
my
ever be
problem is
considered
that
hand.
Robert seems to think the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe I guess Cersei talked to him, but like, why would he seriously consider Jamie? Because he hates Jamie. We learned this later. He hates Jamie. They don't like each other.
And later later there's another one of these things about like Renly's stupid idea about Robert setting Cersei aside for Marjorie. Like, it's a really stupid idea, and you can chalk it up to it being a really stupid idea. But Cersei thinks about the idea too, as if like it's not stupid. But
that it's possible because like there's no like is there record of like kings setting aside their wives?
No, like, no, not. So then Jamie says, "Gods forbid, it's not an honor I'd want. It's far too much work." Okay,
right.
I mean, you'd think this would have come up months ago, but okay, they're having the conversation now. And then it's like, don't you see the danger this puts us in? Robert loves the man like a brother. Why would it put them in any danger?
Are they worried about it? So this is them worried because they're not worried about them discovering murder. They're worried about incest. They're
worried about the incest or just like losing power.
Robert loves the man. This puts us in danger. So they're afraid Ned Stark is going to super sleuth the incest.
Right. Ned's, like, but I mean, Robert loved John Arryn like a brother.
Like a father figure.
And he also has brothers that, he somewhat is okay. He is somewhat okay with one of them. But like the point, like, why does it put them in danger?
I see why you're hyper focused on it. My one question is, does Ned have a reputation of being a super sleuth across the Seven Kingdoms? Like, if he did, I'd be like, oh, fuck, not this guy.
Yeah, if he was if he was like a super genius, he hyper fixates on things. But no, I never get that vibe from Ned.
Is he solving cold cases across the kingdoms? Like, no, not this guy.
He apparently didn't with Roose Bolton, right? Roose Bolton was doing all kinds of nasty stuff on his land, and Ned didn't hear about it, unless that was his dad's rule that it was happening under.
So this conversation gets so weird. So Jamie ignores that and is just like, whatever. Robert can't stomach his brothers. Not that I blame him. Stannis would give anyone indigestion. And then she says, don't play the fool. Stannis and Renly are one thing, but Eddard Stark is quite another. Robert will listen to Stark. Like, listen to him on what? Like,
Stark, I guess the incest.
But
they're just he's going to discover it.
And she says, damn them both. I should have insisted that he name you, but I was certain Stark would refuse. So now it's like, she knew. Now she knew that he was going to ask Ned the whole time, but Ned was going to refuse, which is actually the truth. So like how Cersei has that opinion is really weird to me. Cause like, it is true that Ned doesn't want to be hand, but he doesn't want to be hand because he feels the North is his place. And it seems that King's Landing reminds him of his dead father and his dead brother and his dead sister. Cersei somehow made that calculus that like
she's so inconsistent here. She's incredibly smart when she says, well, yeah, Robert's not going to listen to his brothers, but he will listen to Ned. True, but then Jamie should be hand. It's like she says something very smart and then something kind of dumb at the same time, because Jamie being hand, that's not going to get you what you want. You'll get power, but it's almost
right. But why was she certain that Ned would refuse him? That's what I don't get. Like, does she know Ned Stark very well? Like, why would she?
Exactly.
Have they even met before this? I guess, but probably right.
At their
Wedding or something.
wedding or something many years ago. He said last time I saw some babe, it was like, young or something. I think he saw him like
Cersei knows him very well. She knows he's a super sleuth, and she knows that he would do. What's going on here?
This is like reverse because we talk about, like, you talk about how Tyrion and all the people in like little was a Sweet Robin and everybody in the Red Keep, like, don't act like they don't know that each other that much, even though they spend years together. And then we got the reverse where like people that don't really know each other.
She knows him.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of funny because, I mean, the only reason that Ned actually accepts is because of the letter, the Littlefinger letter, and, Catelyn convinces him. So she was right that he was going to refuse, which is such a weird thing because I think most people would be like, "Oh yeah, he would be." Who wouldn't want to be Hand of the King? You're like the second most powerful person in the realm. Who wouldn't want that responsibility? It's like if Joe Biden came to you and said, "Hey, Trey, I want you to be, my vice president." You'd be like, yeah, why not? Like, what a cool experience, right? Like, who wouldn't take that? I don't know.
Ned's shy. Ned's shy though. He's a little shy. He doesn't want to leave the North. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe she came up with something else. She's just like, nah, maybe, or maybe Cersei's a genius. She's like, Ned's family was killed in the Red Keep. He's probably going to refuse because that's going to remind him of his family getting killed. Like she's just like in his head and figured it out. We ought to count ourselves fortunate, the man said. The king might have easily named one of his brothers or even Littlefinger. God's help us. Like Jaime's just out of it. He would never name Littlefinger. Like never. Yeah. Naming Renly is one thing, but
Hand Littlefinger's crazy. That's insane. That's like an insane plan right there.
Right. Give me honorable enemies rather than ambitious ones, and I'll sleep more easily at night. So why do they see Ned as an enemy?
I think
he's given them no reason.
An enemy
he's given them no
Cersei
reason.
or an enemy of the Lannisters themselves.
But why? Why would they be enemy? Like they were allies in the war. Because he like walked in and saw Jaime sitting on the throne and was like, grumble, grumble. You're allies in the Greyjoy rebellion.
I guess Jaime, this is Jaime speaking. So Jaime hates Ned Stark literally because of the throne room thing. Because Ned Stark gave him a nasty look. That makes sense from Jaime.
The guy gave me a dirty look 15 years ago, so I don't like the guy.
It stuck with him, I guess.
We fought side by side in war at the Greyjoy rebellion, but I still remember that look he gave me after I murdered the king and sat on the throne.
It really hurt Jaime's feelings. Okay, it stuck with him for years and years afterwards. This guy he barely knows.
We'll have to watch him carefully, the woman said. Okay. All right. I mean,
Red Keep.
Jaime's on the small council. I mean, no, he's not. I'm sorry. The Lord Commander is still Barristan at this point. So I guess not. I would sooner watch you come back here. Lord Eddard has never taken any interest in anything that's happened south of the Neck. Never, I tell you. He means to move against us. Why else would he leave his seat of power?
He took interest in the Greyjoy rebellion, though.
It's true.
I can see this as Cersei's paranoia more than anything, which okay.
I guess you could just be like, she's paranoid. But it's just like the natural thing. Like you ask somebody to be the second most powerful person in the realm. Like, why wouldn't you? But also, like, why would he move against you? Why would he leave his seat of power? Well, I mean, later when Mace Tyrell, I mean, I guess she thinks Mace Tyrell is conspiring against her too. So I don't know. So then Jaime quite logically gives the reasons. He says 100 reasons: duty, honor. He yearns to write his name large across the book of history, to get away from his wife, or both. Perhaps he wants to be warm for once in his life. Jaime is quite logical there.
This is the part where I really kind of don't understand what's happening. When they bring up Lysa Arryn.
Okay. His wife is Lady Isla's is Lady Arryn's sister. It's a wonder. I mean, the level of exposition is ridiculous. Like of course they fucking know that Lysa and Catelyn are sisters. Like, his wife is Lady Arryn's sister. It's a wonder Lysa was not here to greet us with her accusations. What is that?
That's the one that trips me up, because it's like, okay, are they saying because they didn't murder Lord Arryn. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about the incest. So this supposes that Lysa knows about the incest.
Right, that Jon Arryn told Lysa.
Which I don't think she did. Did he?
No, but like that's the only thing that I can think of. Unless Lysa saw them. They're just like, we were making out once and Lysa walked by. Lysa figured the whole thing out.
Not here to greet us with her accusations. So it sounds like she's already accusing them. It's not here to greet us with her accusations. Like they see, like they know that Lysa knows about the incest. Like that's the only explanation, is that they know. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
So then they say, you fret too much. Lysa Arryn is a frightened cow. A frightened cow shared Jon Arryn's bed. So somehow they're saying they know Jon Arryn knew about the incest.
Okay.
Which,
who told them that? Pycelle, maybe?
But Pycelle never. I don't think Pycelle ever.
Are you sure the accusation that Lysa would throw would it be like accusing them of killing Jon Arryn? You sure that's not what it is?
I think originally it was that, but like things have been changed.
But they're innocent of that. They're 100% innocent of killing Jon Arryn.
Oh, Trey, did you ever watch the videos we did about the early drafts?
Oh yeah. That it seems like Cersei was the real killer all along.
Right. Yeah, so maybe there's some of that still in here.
That's what I'd think, because it's just weirdly, because they're like pretty gun ho that Lysa knows something and Jon Arryn knows something, and if it's not the incest, it has to be like his own murder. If she knew anything, she would have gone to Robert before she fled King's Landing. Okay, she's not here to greet us with her accusations. If she knew anything.
This weird. Is the thing that, like, I suppose the assumption is that Jon Arryn told Lysa before he was murdered. I don't think Cersei and Jaime know that Jon Arryn was murdered, but at least somehow he died, and they're assuming that Lysa Arryn was told about the incest. But then there's like, but then he's like, no, if she knew anything, she would have gone to Robert before she fled King's Landing. And then Cersei's like, when he had already agreed to foster that weakling son of hers at Casterly Rock, I think not. She knew the boy's life would be hostage to her silence. She may grow bolder now that he's safe atop the Eyrie. This line doesn't make any sense to me, because like, if you are scared that your kid is going to get taken away by the Lannisters, you tell Robert that Cersei and Jaime are fucking. Like, and instantly that fostering is going to be canceled.
And then the fostering's done, yeah.
Yeah, like, that makes no sense that, like, oh, there's going to be a fostering, therefore she has to stay quiet about the incest. This is probably, like, the thing that works the least for me is this, like Lysa's motivation here.
They should have They should have, instead of Stannis being the one that was like, was not tweeting, sending out ravens with the incest, it should have been
He's
Lysa.
tweeting, yes.
That's basically what Stannis was doing, I guess. Because yeah, they're afraid Lysa knows about the incest and is going to tell. But she doesn't really. I don't think she does. She doesn't bring it up. Let's see. Lady Erin grows as bold as she likes. Whatever she knows, whatever she thinks she knows, she has no proof. Or does she? Do you think the king will require proof? I tell you he loves me not. Okay.
Here's my problem. Actually, if we go back a little bit, this is the problem with the idea that Jon Arryn told Lysa, because in A Clash of Kings, this is in A Clash of Kings, Tyrion asks, "Who killed Jon Arryn?" Cersei yanked her hand back. "How should I know? The grieving widow in the Eyrie seems to think it was me. How did she come to that notion, I wonder? I'm sure I don't know. That fool Eddard Stark accused me of the same thing. He hinted that Lord Arryn suspected or, well, believed. This implies that Cersei didn't know about Lord Arryn's suspicions until Ned
told her.
Ned told her.
Oh, dang. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So, of course, unless she's, lying to Tyrion or whatever. But, so I don't know. So there's a little retcon there on like, who knows, but this motivation for Lysa is horrible. And then, Jaime's just like, I don't know. I don't know what you're fucking doing, Jaime. Mothers, the man made a word sound like a curse. I think birthing does something to your minds. You're all mad. He laughed. Like, what's mad about Lysa? Like, look, Lysa is crazy, but like, nothing here implies that Lysa's crazy. Like, let Lady Erin grow as bold as she likes. Whatever she knows, whatever she thinks she knows, she has no proof. Or does she? I also think this is really stupid on Jaime's part, because say Lady Lysa tweets out that that Cersei and Jaime are fucking. Whether or not like it's believed, like now they're going to be under scrutiny and they won't be able to like be as free. He's not gonna like let Jaime guard her as much or whatever, or go for whatever brother and sister walks or whatever they do to have.
They're gonna be under the microscope.
Right. They're gonna be under a microscope. So Jaime being like, yeah, it's no big deal is ridiculous. It's a fucking big deal. It's a fucking big deal when you're committing incest and like somebody like accuses you of it. Like the only reason they're getting away with their incest is because it's such an outlandish concept that a brother and sister would be having sex that it's just the last thing in people's minds. I mean, except for Ned later, but like it's the last thing in people's minds that they would ever have sex. But once somebody's like, dude, they're having sex, then everybody's like, oh,
Oh gosh, you're right that it would, like, even the accusation itself would probably ruin their relationship. They wouldn't be able to hang out privately.
And then he says, well, the king will require proof. I tell you, he loves me not. So Robert would just believe him, anyways. And whose fault is that, sweet sister? You're as blind as Robert. All these statements, like they don't do anything. If you mean I see the same thing, yes, I see a man. And this is a weird. So this is another bad part of this conversation. So they're talking about Ned, and they've transitioned to talking about Lysa and Lysa's beliefs about the incest. And then she says, "You're as blind as Robert." And then he's like, if you mean I see the same thing, yes, I see a man who would sooner die than betray his king. Like, where did that fucking come from? You're all of a sudden jumping back to talking about Ned out of fucking nowhere. Kind of weird. And then it's like, he betrayed one already, or have you forgotten?
Referring to Ares?
Yeah, I guess so. Oh, I don't deny he's loyal to Robert. That's obvious. What happens when Robert dies and Joffrey takes the throne? That's really weird.
Yeah, because Robert is 35, right? He's like 35,
yeah, he might be like 37, but like he's supposed to be living another good like 20, at least 20 years, right? Let's say they're like, okay, Robert's fat. Maybe he's not going to live that long. But, or are they already planning on murdering him? Is she already planning on murdering him?
Sooner it comes to pass, the safer we'll all be. Because you're right, she's referring to something that's decades away.
Right.
He grows restless every day.
Like, what happens when Robert dies and Joff takes the throne at the age of 35?
When Joffrey's a grown man.
After 2 years of him being groomed to take the throne, after he's acted as hand, Robert might switch his hand or whatever, like years down the road. Like, it's so silly to be like, what's going to happen next? Like, in the context of the book, it's like, well, yeah, Robert only has a year to live, but like, no one knows that. But then the other thing, and the sooner it pass, the safer it will be. My husband grows more restless every day. This is really weird.
He's itching. He's itching after 15 years.
He's itching. He's got that 15-year itch.
Even though he whores, right? He's not monogamous. So like, he's getting satisfied.
And having Stark beside him will only make him worse. The honorable Stark, having him next to him will only make Robert want to bang bitches more.
So Cersei's like Ned Stark's gonna be at Robert's shoulder, like nudging him, like you should.
Yeah. The same way John Aaron was. I don't know. Like, he's still in love with the sister, the insipid little dead 16-year-old. How long till he decides to put me aside for some new Lyanna? Well, it's been fucking 15 years. So I don't know. Another 15? Like, what? Like, but here's the thing about like putting me aside. It's not even like
never been done. Yeah.
Never been done in history. Right.
Or if it ever is done, it's like there's retaliation by the faith. Like, it's not done without.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I don't really remember what Aegon the Unworthy did or whatever. I don't think he set aside wives.
I don't know if didn't they like start? I mean, Maegor dealt with stuff by like
polygamy.
Polygamy. I think the ones that were set aside were Baelor the Blessed was able to, his wives were able to get out of the relation, the marriage, because it hadn't been consummated. Okay. So I think there was a marriage. Yeah.
There's not much precedent, is what we're saying for setting aside.
You're both right. Like, it's her paranoia, but at the same time, the way I read it is she is so used to Robert just giving in and doing whatever just to get her to shut the hell up, that she has some degree of power. She wants more power by having Jaime as hand, because Jaime doesn't, even though he doesn't want it, Cersei will be the one pulling the strings. I guess she's afraid that there will be some new girl to come in, and that woman, Rob will be listening to that woman more than her. That's the paranoia?
No, she literally thinks that like he is going to end their marriage and
legally
marry
set her
someone
aside. New. And the thing is it could be Cersei's paranoia, but Renly brings it up as like a realistic idea later. So it's like something that is presumably plausible in their world.
Yes.
I guess some people view it.
Right. Because, I mean, this is all based on like Henry VIII setting aside his wife for Anne Boleyn. Like this is the whole like thing, right? But like George is setting up this like church schism, the founding of the Church of Westeros over the Faith of the Seven Church or whatever, like like English Reformation, Westerosi Reformation, but you know, he's putting seeds of some plot that he drops, you know, that doesn't go anywhere. Like people having simultaneous, like, I mean, I guess George does this a lot, like people having simultaneous ideas, like both Tyrion and Jaime coming to the conclusion that Joffrey killed, or Joffrey sent the cat's paw when it's a ridiculous idea. Like both of them simultaneously came to like this madness. Like here, like both Cersei and Renly simultaneously came up with the exact same really bonkers, stupid idea at the same time. You know,
Yeah.
two monkeys on a typewriter, like typing out the same novel.
Shakespeare. Oh gosh, you're right. He does do that. He does like to do that, where they're like both right independently, and that proves that it was going to happen. Like,
Yes.
that it's a realistic concept. Yeah.
The man's side. You should think less about the future and more about the pleasures at hand. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, Jaime's an idiot in this conversation too, but he's a little less of an idiot because he's just like, oh, this is ridiculous. Stop that.
You're trying to have sex. Stop talking about this stuff.
All this
should have
all this
conversation months ago.
All this talk is getting very tiresome, sister. Come here and be quiet. And then, oh, stop it. Oh, stop it. And then, you know, that's it. So yeah, that's, I can't think of a more ridiculous conversation. There's a few that bother me. Like I do think that like Jaime talking to Roose Bolton in A Storm of Swords at dinner is a really weird conversation. That's where they start talking about like Vargo Hoat's motivations and stuff like that.
Oh, where he like text dumps. He like gives like
Yeah.
a whole essay to Jaime and Brienne. Well, I actually think if you see this right here, there's
Yes.
Vargo Hoat was planning on this, and he needs a keep in the north, but it needs to be out of the Tywin's reach. Like
You're like, whoa. This all makes perfect sense.
Like,
Yes.
nobody asked Roose Bolton. Nobody asked that. I'm trying to think if there's any other conversations that the more you read him, the more that they make less sense.
Become comically absurd like that.
I guess like Varys and Illyrio's speeches typically sound like nonsensical when you try to reread them with other context in mind.
Yes. I mean, we can bring that one up if you want. Like Illyrio,
sure.
Illyrio, and the famous one.
Like you're going too fast.
Game for two players.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The game for two players speech.
Because I think it's pretty clear that just like the Aegon stuff is just not in existence yet.
You didn't know what was going on. So he says, so I mean, you got to think like at this point, like this is how crazy their plan is. They've given this 14-year-old girl, this 15-year-old girl to Khal Drogo, who has marched thousands of miles east with Viserys. Okay. And at this point, Illyrio's like, you know what? It's time for me to like sail to King's Landing and have a secret conversation with my boy Varys underneath the keep.
Best friend.
Yeah. And so Varys is like, he says, you know, if he does not bestir himself soon, it may be too late. The stout man in the cap said, this is no longer a game for two players. Who the second player is, we don't know, but if there is.
No longer a game for two players.
Yeah. I mean, the only person, way back in the day, I was like, well, the only person left is Doran Martell. Like, who else could he be talking about? Unless he's talking about Bloodraven in a tree.
Is he talking about Littlefinger? What is he?
No, because he
what is
mentions
talking about?
Littlefinger later. So can't everybody he
Oh,
mentions later can't be that person.
Bloodraven.
It's either
They planned it all.
Bloodraven or it's Doran Martell.
Okay.
Okay, so, maybe it's
Doran
Tywin.
Martell and all his sons.
So he says, Stannis Baratheon and Lysa Arryn have fled beyond my reach, and my whispers say they're gathering swords around them. Is Lysa Arryn gathering swords?
Not really. Like, I guess it's her suitors. Like, I guess it's technically like her suitors are gathering around her.
I guess, or maybe
She really doesn't use them.
His whispers, are like suck. Maybe that's just might be it too. Like nobody. The Knight of Flowers writes Highgarden, urging his lord father to send his sister to court. The girl is a maid of 14, sweet and beautiful and tractable, and Lord Renly and Sir Loras intend that Robert should bed her,
So it's like
wed
a
her,
third
and make
person.
her a new queen.
Now it's Varys is having the same plan too. So it's 3 different people are having this stupid plan to set aside Cersei. Because Varys is saying that treating like it's plausible.
Yes, he thinks it's plausible. Yeah. I mean, he at least hears about it from Renly and Loras. Like Renly and Loras conspired, thought this plan was workable, and Varys heard about it and was like, "Oh, this is something we have to worry about."
Oh, weird.
And the only reason it kind of doesn't go anywhere is that Renly goes to Ned and is like, "Hey, I've got this picture of Marjorie. Do you think this looks like Lyanna?" And Ned's like, "No." No, doesn't look like it at all. And it's like, up. And then the plan, that's it. That's the end of the plan. That's the end. It's the end of the plan. Never talked about again. Littlefinger, Gods only knows what game Littlefinger's playing. Yet Stark's the one that troubles my sleep. Oh, that Ned Stark.
That Ned Stark, he's a genius. Sorry. Very quick back to the Renly Loras plan. Is Renly's motivation only that Loras would be close by? I guess because he loves Loras. Is that what's Renly's motivation for having Cersei set aside? He just power. He just wants power.
I guess pleasing his boyfriend. That's about it.
Yeah.
Doing a nice thing for his boyfriend.
Okay. Thanks, Renly. What a great plan.
You're kind of right.
He's violating the faith, overturning 100 years of faith of the Seven stuff, just to play. That's kind of, I guess it's cool. It's kind of awesome, just to please his boyfriend.
I mean, yeah. I suppose they could set up the same. If Marjorie is there, Loras has more of a reason for hanging around. But
yeah,
it sounds like Loras is just at court. It's all cool.
Because Loras is Loras still Renly's squire? Or no, he graduated. He's a knight.
Graduated, but he's just one of those. There's dudes at court.
Yeah. What's his
Tal
name?
of
What's
the Tall,
coughing guy?
or
Sir Giles Rosby.
Just dudes at court, right?
And they can just stick around there. Nobody's gonna.
Right. Some of them make sense,
Yeah.
like Jalbar Zoe. Okay, well, he's an exile. Aaron Santigar is the armorer, but master at arms. But some dudes are just there.
Balon Swan.
Right. Norcross. All the people that get accused of boning Marjorie in A Feast for Crows, they're just all at court. Balon Swan, he's just at court.
Yeah, he's just chilling.
It's just chilling,
going on dates with what's her name?
Having dinners and making inappropriate jokes that that get on people's radars.
You're right. He does have this stupid joke, and you're right. I forgot about that. The report that he was saying bad jokes.
So
it doesn't go anywhere.
I mean, so it's a bit much, right? There's a million ways in which Sir Loras could be hanging around Renly, but they're you know what? The best way to do it is to have my brother set aside his wife to marry your sister. even though that's not like a thing. Like
change precedent, change 300
change precedent.
years of precedent.
Have a major schism between the crown and the church.
All right. That's kind of awesome. He's willing to do that. He loves Loras that much.
It's it's a good relationship.
The ass is that good. The twink's that good.
the twink is that good.
You're gonna convince the king to split the church up against the Pope for the twink. Right. All right, sorry, I interrupted you.
So Lord Eddard Stark's the one who troubles my sleep. He has the bastard. He has the book. Soon enough, he'll have the truth.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, then why, Varys, were you like getting Ned all riled up about the mountain and Cersei at the hands tourney if you're trying to slow down everything?
Yeah.
You know?
He's stirring it up. I remember I reread Game of Thrones recently, and he has like 2 chapters or something where he's stirring it up. He's making Ned suspicious of the Lannisters.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe Varys and Illyrio are just not on the same page, but we never get that impression. Like, that they're not on the same page. Soon enough, he'll have the truth. You know what you can do, Varys? You can go into the walls. Why don't you like steal the book and burn it? Like, just you're the fucking.
You're right. He wouldn't have the truth. He'd probably be more convinced that something's up, but he probably
you don't even need to burn it. Just like keep it in the walls until you're ready for war, and then you can put it back on Ned's desk. Like.
Ned's like, oh, I misplaced this. Oh, I guess.
Finally, now I can finally go to Robert. Oh.
Oh my god.
And now his wife has abducted Tyrion Lannister, thanks to Littlefinger's meddling. First of all, that's a way bigger deal than Ned having the bastard in the book. Like, I mean, like
that's the escalation of war. Like, war's starting now.
Like, oh my gosh, you know, he's on the, like, this is almost an afterthought. And now his wife has abducted Tyrion Lannister thanks to Littlefinger's meddling. Like, that should be the first fucking thing. Like, it's like, he should say, if he doesn't bestir himself, it may be too late. Number 1, Ned Stark's wife has abducted Tyrion Lannister and we're on the edge of war. That should be like the first fucking thing. It's not like Lysa Arryn has fled beyond my reach and Whisper is saying that she's gathering swords. No. How about Lysa Arryn has Tyrion Lannister and is putting him on fucking trial? Like,
Preston, you're missing the fact that Varys' whispers. Later, we learn that Varys' whispers are telling him about the Shadowbinder from Ashai, that she's just showed up. Stannis has brought the Shadowbinder, so they're very late. They forgot that she's been living there for a while,
years.
At least. Yeah. For years. He just found out they're very bad whispers right now, right? They're not going to do their job yet. They haven't been trained. They get trained over the course of the books.
Lord Tywin will take an outrage, and Jaime has a queer affection for the imp. Queer affection for his brother. Like,
Varys, you have no family. You have no family, Varys. You should not be like queer affections for people. You and Illyrio are buddies.
No, it's true.
You met on the streets and you're like buddies.
It's like you have a queer affection for a morbidly obese man. Jaime Lannister can't have a queer affection for a dwarf.
Who's his brother? That they grew up together for years.
Yeah, you know,
Varys judgmental.
If the Lannisters move north, that will bring the Tullys in as well. Well, yeah. Also, like, you know,
they're married.
Delay, you say. Make haste, I reply. Even the finest of jugglers cannot keep 100 balls in the air forever. By the way, it's like, if the Lannisters move north, that'll bring in the Tullys. I mean, I guess it's weird. I suppose
they got to cross. They got to cross through the Tully.
Got to cross through the Riverlands. It's not really a move north. You're kind of moving east, but you know, it's fine. It's fine. They mean like to attack the north or whatever.
So okay, so there, Varys is saying that because Illyria's telling him to slow down. They're not ready for Daenerys yet to cross over. She needs to give birth.
He's like, try to keep
And-
peace going. Like, keep the peace.
And Varys is like, no, speed it up. And I've always reread this and tried to figure out where Aegon fits into it, like, because it's not. I know it's not in the plan, but
I mean, I think at this point, what are they trying to do here? I mean, according to Dance of Dragons, like somehow Aegon would come too, but
because Daenerys is married right now, they're not going to marry Aegon to Daenerys. They should have saved that. They shouldn't have.
Right. I mean, the only one that's single is Viserys, so you can marry Aegon to Viserys.
gay wedding, gay Targaryen. The two kings. That'd be awesome.
That'd be unexpected, you know.
Would they get along? I'm trying to figure out if Viserys.
I think Viserys would hate him. He'd just be like, "Who the fuck?" Viserys hates everybody. I mean, maybe if you give him a nice shirt, you know.
John Connington and Viserys.
John Connington and Viserys. Ah.
He probably looks like Rhaegar because they're brothers.
It's true. I mean, the thing is, Viserys is straight. That's the problem.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Illyria's like, we have a marriage for you, Viserys, and it means you're the king, but you're not gonna like it.
Do I get to wear fine silks? You know? Yes, you do. Oh man, it's so fun. It's so fun going back to a Game of Thrones. I didn't realize just like how much is, because we focus so much on A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons because we're trying to figure out what's going to happen next in the Winds of Winter. But when you go back and you're like, wow, so much has changed in writing style, in what's considered like what's considered a norm in Westeros, you know, like the characters. You see the plots
like
that are
a
dropped.
lot of second sons, like what you do with second sons, like with Jon thinking like, oh, or a bastard, or like I gotta join the wall, and then you see all these bastards in high positions, and they're actually loved by their parents and stuff like that.
As somebody put once, so Catelyn tells Ned that she can't Catelyn tells Ned that it would be a great insult to Cersei if Ned brought a bastard to court. And then 3 books later, Cersei makes a bastard her master of ships.
Oh, yeah. Wait a second. Yeah. What's his name? The one that looks like
Waters.
Rhaegar.
Right.
Yeah. Wait a second. Yeah.
And she's also like, she's definitely considering fucking him. Like, it's not even like.
You're so because okay, I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's like there's one of the bastards of Walder Frey is like in a high position. He's like a knight, right? He's like
Walder Rivers. Yeah.
There's Ramsay Snow, who's in a high position. He's given a lot of important tasks by his dad.
Stannis leaves a bastard to take care of Dragonstone while he Roland Storm.
Bastard of Night Song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's cool with bastards. If Stannis is cool with bastards, then like nobody should have a problem with bastards.
Right. No one should have problems with bastards. And you know, like, you could be like, oh, well, what about the Lannisters? Like literally Cersei has a cousin, Joy, who is a bastard, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's given an important marriage to a noble house.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah. There's all this stuff that
hypocrite? No, stop it.
Because I guess the idea is that as the war goes on, like people's sons and family members are dying, so they're relying more on bastards, I guess, and they're going to be more chill with it. With like the Waters situation, I guess like the rest of his family's dead.
Well, there's a
Bruce
lot of
Bolton doesn't
there's a
have
lot of things that
son.
are a little weird. Like it's so shocking that Arya is this tomboy who wants to like fight. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's so shocking. I mean, except for the fact that like House Mormont exists and like Brienne of Tarth exists, and like and you start like going through the story, you're like, oh right, and that other fighting woman, and like the Sand Snakes exist, and like oh, and those and you're like, oh, fighting women are actually everywhere, and like Asha Greyjoy exists, and like no one's sitting there being like, well, like it's
You're
so
right,
scandalous that Arya is like hanging around horses and like wants to sword fight, except for the fact that like Greyjoy's daughter is a great fighter, and Dorn Martell's like nieces has a whole slew of nieces who are great fighters, and Evenstar has a daughter who's a great fighter, and House Mormont has all of these like fighter women. But it's scandalous that like Arya.
You're right that like especially with Ned and Arya, he should have like it should have been brought up like, oh, the women of Bear Isle are
Right.
fighters too,
Well, the
because it's
women of
brought
Bear
up in
Isle.
Game of Thrones,
Right.
because it's not something later books. Yeah, you're right that like because in the Mormonts are.
I have an
Ned's
interesting
vassals.
story. I was once trying to send this slaver to the wall, but he had a bunch of sisters who were all really great fighters.
right.
Or the Lord Commander of the wall, the Night's Watch, his daughters are all great fighters.
My brother works there. You're right.
Yeah,
you're
my
right
brother
that,
works
like,
there.
you
Yeah,
should
he
know
knows him
this
really
stuff.
well. And the one before, Lord
Mirror's a
Corgyle, he
fighter?
was Dornish, and women fighting Dorne, and it's fine.
Mira's a fighter too. You got
You're right,
people in the
Mirror
neck
Reed.
who are
You're right.
fighters.
I mean, it's just another, yeah. It's
Oh
like,
gosh, you're right that it's more of an exception.
oh right, my
that women are
best
fighters.
friend's daughter, like one of my best friend's daughter is also a great fighter. Also,
Oh God, you're right. You're right.
it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
The answer is he didn't plan this stuff out. I know I shouldn't be so hard on George, but it's funny to go back, and especially it's important with like the modern, like with the Varys and Illyrio's conversation. Like people have analyzed that so much, and it just doesn't make much sense.
It doesn't, and you kind of realize that like how much use is over analyzing a Game of Thrones, like, or a Clash of Kings. Like I understand like putting all the like I understand the analyzing A Dance with Dragons or A Feast for Crows. I kind of get it because it's the most recent books, and he spent a lot more time thinking about those books, I assume, because it took so much longer to write them. But of what use is like going back and like finding text in a Game of Thrones to like prove a theory, like.
George. That's like the sad thing about like really getting invested in A Song of Ice and Fire is you learn that George isn't as smart as you think he is.
Right.
And he's human. He's really smart.
Human.
That's like not
of course. He's a genius,
human.
but let's be realistic. He's still human. He's a genius,
like
but he's still human.
It's like seeing the man behind the curtain, the magician man, whatever the analogy is, Wizard of Oz. It's like seeing that. You're like, oh, I guess I understand how it works now.
Yeah.
That's especially with the library stuff where you actually see how it works. You're like, oh,
right, going through it, yeah, going through the drafts. Anyway, we've been chatting for an hour. I guess we can wrap this one up. But thank you, Trey, for having a laugh with me at what I think is one of the sloppier, sloppy early chapters, and also like obviously much better writing than I could ever do, and great nonetheless. But on a George standard, I think a very sloppy, all over the place chapter of retcons and contradictions.
Definitely for the chapters nearby it, because there's, I don't know, some of them are just so streamlined, and this one feels not much happens in it. Like it's a lot of weird filler that doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, but going through it, I just realized like the prologue and Catelyn 1 and Arya 1 are such great chapters in what they introduce and the intrigue and everything. And
they're very like economical. Like as you go
Yeah.
by them, like they're very like efficient with sentences and words. Like there's not like a sentence wasted.
yeah. But what you gonna do? They can't all be A+ chapters. Get our little A.
What's the worst chapter in the series before we go? What's in your opinion the worst chapter?
in the whole book, in the whole
You
Yeah,
open up a
series.
can of worms.
whole
You open up a
series.
can of worms. Oh my god.
I've talked about it before, but I very strongly think it's Tyrion 7, A Dance with Dragons. That's the one where he goes to Volantis. I
Oh,
very
the longest
much,
one.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
also
the
it's
chapter that's like super long.
super long and super useless. And the widow of the waterfront conversation is gibberish. It's
When
just
Penny attacks him, and
Penny
now she wants
attacks
to
him,
give
and
him
then suddenly
a
she
ship
trusts
now.
them. It's nonsense. It's such a beautifully written like prose. Like it's so beautifully written, and you're just like, what is this? This is like long descriptions of Volantis, like as they walk the streets for no fucking reason. With this, it's
Mine. It's I think the Dance with Dragons. That's between. It's Tyrion. It's Tyrion because there's a lot of Tyrion. That's just a lot of downtime.
oh yeah.
Between Illyrio's manse and reaching the river.
Oh right, the
there's
one
that-
where it's just him talking to Duck. Like we get this long introduction of Duck. You're like, why are we learning all of this about?
Well, I was thinking about where they're in like the hills of Andalos.
Oh,
and they're
Andalos,
like-
yeah.
He's like, yes, here's a pond where some thieves used to hang out at, and here's a hill where something whatever the gods of the Andals walked, and it doesn't go anywhere. It's just kind of like lore building.
It's
I
like
guess
we're
it's lore
exploring the
building.
world book, like the lands of ice and fire or something for no reason at all. Like they're
Ice and fire.
That's actually the same. I think it's the. Is it? I'm trying to think if I'm.
There's like
conflating
interesting
Tyrion
stuff
3 and
said
Tyrion
with
2.
him talking to Illyrio, but it could have been put into a different chapter. You know, it could have been shoehorned in somewhere else.
Right, I know what you're talking about with like the discussion of Barristan the Bold and
The Blackfires.
The Blackfires. Yeah, people talk about how Tyrion 1 to 3 probably could have been combined into one chapter. Tyrion 1 they're at the manse, Tyrion 2 they're in their carriage, and then Tyrion 3 they meet Duck and Halden, and we get this like egregiously long backstory on Duck.
On Duck, when how he had the hammer and sword or something. Yeah.
And then Duck largely like goes to the background of the story. He's there, but you wouldn't know it. And you're like, why did we have this long introduction to this like character who plays very little role in the story going forward? But I mean, some people are like, oh, well, that Duck Caswell plot like needs to come in the Winds of Winter or something, because that's the reason why it was introduced. Or George was just fucking writing and filling fucking pages.
Don't say that. I don't want to think that George is doing filler. Don't do that.
With the Tyrion story, definitely. Tyrion's
for
story is
for
definitely
Tyrion
filler.
for Tyrion Dance with Dragons for sure, 100%. It's a lot of
like if you're telling me like John Con, I'd be like, no, John Con. Every sentence is practically fucking needed for John Con. For the two John
even
Con.
Brienne going through the Riverlands and that area and learning about the history of all these places.
One of the Jamie Feast for Crows, I think, could have been cut. I think the one is there one? Is it this? I don't know if it's the same one for Harrenhal. Because is there one where he's traveling to Harrenhal and then he reaches Harrenhal, or is it two different chapters?
I forget. I always flip it around if he goes to Harrenhal and then goes to Derry, or if he goes to Derry and then Harrenhal. But I mean, but Carmine, to answer your question about like Brienne, there's stuff that could have been more efficient. Like the first, like her being on the, like, I mean, I do understand the Brienne story, and it's very well crafted, but I do admit it could be a little more efficient. her conversations with Illifer, the penniless, and like, she doesn't really need to meet the High Sparrow on the road. That was unnecessary. She doesn't need to meet the pious dwarf. She doesn't, I think all the stuff with Nimble Dick is pretty good.
I love Nimble Dick.
Yeah,
Nimble Dick's my favorite character.
Right, and I think Nimble Dick is really good. I think it's important to spend time with Randall Tarley, and I think I think the time at the Quiet Isle is important. But I think you're right that like she didn't need to meet the pious dwarf or the High Sparrow, or you probably didn't need Illa for the penniless and serve Leighton or Creighton.
I'm thinking there could have been an Arya chapter removed somewhere, either Clash or Swords.
I mean, in a Clash of Kings and a Storm of Swords, you could probably remove 5 Arya chapters. They could be more efficient on those,
There's so many of her I know you've talked about this with her wandering the Riverlands, but there's just so many chapters of Arya wandering around. Like we probably could have skipped her in like the Vale village or something after.
Yeah, and there's nothing really gained from her meeting the Ghost of High Heart. I understand that people love like the Ghost of High Heart and like analyzing her visions, but it doesn't add anything to the story at all.
She meets her twice.
Yeah,
I didn't realize this. I forgot that she meets her twice.
She hears visions, then they come back, and she hears more visions.
Like, why not just once? We just need one.
Right. It's
You're both crazy. Visions are fun. Stop it.
It's fun, but it doesn't advance the plot. You're just,
I saw a crow. With seaweed.
There was a woman with serpents in her hair and a floppy fish. Oh!
Because I'm thinking about like the Ariane chapter and how there's like a Ghost of High Heart character there, like the girl from and she speaks like the dragon's dancing vision, and it's right here, like it's like could have removed that chapter. Don't really need it.
That's true. I mean, the Arion 1 and 2, the sample chapters could have been easily combined. It's a lot of killing time. Whatever the Tyrion 1, which he read once, doesn't seem like it's useful at all. For the Winds of Winter, there's a lot of killing time chapters. John too has a lot of killing time chapters in A Dance with Dragons.
Oh gosh,
a good chunk. You mentioned Ariane,
the storeroom.
A good chunk of the Princess in the Tower. That great chapter because it ends with the whole vengeance, justice, fire, and blood. But at the beginning of it is just George trying to convey how bored Ariane is stuck in the tower.
Right. No, you're right. That chapter does drag, because you're getting introduced to like her servants and stuff. Like she tries to use one of the servants to like deliver a message, and then the servant just disappears, and you're like, well, I guess it didn't work.
But it ends fantastically. So
we get the Septon Barth stuff too. We got the newts.
So I mean, it's not that Brienne couldn't be more efficient, but there are other inefficiencies that are worse than Brienne.
John inspecting the storerooms under the wall. John meeting Patchface.
I mean, it was very clear that he had like a plot point. He's like, we need to establish that they're going to be starving at the wall, and food is an issue. Okay, so you wrote an entire chapter around the plot point, or like, I need to get a giant back to the wall. So you have an entire chapter where he goes out and finds a giant, just so you could have that giant at the end. It's a lot of pages for one little plot point. But
George is watching this. He's like, these assholes don't know.
These assholes don't understand anything. Who are you? Do you have $100 million? No.
Did you write?
George has $100 million. You think?
I'm just guessing. I don't know. If
did you edit wild cards?
Trey, did you watch the stream we did where the last stream we did where Preston's The Herring and Mines one. I think I talked to you about it briefly on call.
Yes,
Remember I'm talking
I
about?
saw the tweet. I hope we signal boosted enough to get it, because you're right. It was really funny watching Preston talk about it, because you're like, this is like the one fucking question people would care about and he would answer, and he's like, this is the only way people are gonna know that answer, because he's not gonna
Right.
write
He's never going to write
Thousand
anything
Worlds.
more. But
But did you
yeah,
Avalon's gone.
do you agree with what I said about like every time George is asked about Ice and Fire, he gets annoyed? Like if you watch
Yes,
any interview with him,
it's
every single time,
uncomfortable. They're
like
not fun to watch because of it.
yeah, one of the
Because
major ones is when Penguin House did an interview with him for the re-release of Fire and Blood, the illustrated version, and and finally last question. It's like, dude, the fuck are you, like, stop, don't be an asshole. Like you're not here because of Song of Leah, you're here for Ice and Fire. Like that's why anyone's watching this shit. It's not because of Night Flyers, you
you're not
know.
here because of wild cards. Wild cards. A better example, because it's still working on wild cards, I guess. Oh gosh. Whatever. Do what he likes. But yeah, you're totally right, Carmine, that he gets pissed off, and like I guess it's human to get pissed off, but like also like this is what keeps the lights on. This is what makes you rich, and have all those cute
Before,
dioramas in his house of the little knights and the behind the
right,
thing.
but
Remember,
before
you
you
see
met
these? You see
Preston.
these things where you're showing Shay around his house?
Oh, I
About
that
remember
was
that.
that
that was
video.
back
That
when he
video
was
was
young
weird.
and had vigor. It's been a long time. It's been like
That
10
video was
years.
weird. The stuff that he ordered at that dinner. I don't know if I would have ordered that, even if I was a fat guy. I wouldn't order all that stuff at dinner. But Trey, let me ask you this: like when you were watching
Yes.
before you had contact with Preston, like when you were watching his
Yeah.
videos when you were a fan, you always wanted to talk to him about Ice and Fire. But how fucking annoyed would you be when you finally get to talk to him about Ice and Fire, and all he wants to talk about is leftovers? Like that would be kind of
Well,
like
I encounter it too, like, because people like knew me for dinosaur stuff, and I don't really do dinosaur stuff. It's not something I really like anymore. So it's like, I guess you encounter, whenever you have fans that like your older stuff, and it's like, your older stuff's better, but
Yeah.
like you as a and like you get annoyed or whatever, because you're like, I like my newer stuff, and my newer stuff's what I'm more proud of and all that. But like also, you can't be an asshole,
Right. You
these are
also get
people who
uncomfortable
root
because
for you and
it's
stuff.
been a long time and you start forgetting your old stuff, and the new stuff is more in your head. And so maybe George is pissed off because it's also like he's like forgetting like some of that old stuff. He's just like, I don't
You were
know.
asking him about Plato's Republic and the Janchi and stuff like that. He was just like, I don't know what the hell this guy's talking about. I
Yeah,
don't
he didn't know
remember
what I was talking about. Yeah, he wanted to talk. He wanted to talk to the Italian kid about Italy, and he
I was telling Carmine that I would have loved to talk to George about history. Like George loves history, and I can tell that he has like a eye for it. Like he reads history all the time, and he knows stuff that historians only really know. Like whenever he talks, like somebody asked him about like historical sexuality or something like that, and he gave this like really great answer. Like people are like, "Are characters in your story gay or whatever?" He's like, "Well, if you look at history, being gay or straight really wasn't a thing back then. They had different social norms, and if you look at Richard the Third, or whatever he named Henry the Lionheart or whatever, he named all these like historical figures that are known, and so he knows like the literature of it. Like he reads this stuff,
yeah.
just so you know,
and he's
Trey,
obviously more
I'm
passionate about it.
always taken aback by this when it comes to you. You do realize that you have enough pull to get an interview with George. You know that.
Do
I've seen
I?
smaller bro. I've seen smaller YouTubers have interviews with him. You could
I just
come on,
I'm not a good
definitely.
interviewer. I'm like not good at getting people to talk about themselves.
No, that's
But
okay.
I
It'd
would
be
I
like a
would love
Cersei
to.
Jamie Hand situation where Preston will give you the questions. He just ask the fucking questions.
I would just love to talk to George. Like what historical period is like your, well, I guess people have already asked him this. He's like War of the Roses or whatever. But like what I would ask him, like what historical sources were like your inspirations, like the Iliad or Herodotus or whatever. Like I would ask him like Suetonius or whatever. Be like, did you read those? Are those your favorites? I don't know. I don't know. Because you're right that there's a Song of Ice and Fire YouTubers who ask him, and they like are asking about like Uncle Benjen and
Right.
Bloodraven and stuff, and he's not going to answer that stuff, but he might answer that like, especially if he's interested in
He'd
those. He's
definitely have
always down.
more. You'd have more chance to get a conversation about that than Ice and Fire. Like he doesn't
You have
want
to be smart.
he doesn't want to talk about Ice and Fire, and he doesn't want to reveal plot points of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
But then I thought he might want to talk about his previous work. He's clearly beyond his previous work and forgotten about it. So that's also something. So I think you'd have more luck trying to talk to him about general history stuff than anything.
Like what's your favorite, like I could, like that's the thing is you got to be like really smart about your questions, and that's why I liked your questions towards George, because you put a lot of thought behind them and stuff. And
I did, but they failed for the most part. They failed.
you failed, like in you ever play Fallout or whatever, Skyrim,
yeah.
like you failed the speech. Oh, that stinks. Yeah, like I don't know, I'd ask him about that stuff. Unsound variations. What was it?
I wrote that 40 years ago. I don't remember it. No. Okay.
You're right. Getting general would be the best way with him, like to actually get something
right.
out
And
of him.
So it's one of those things where it's just like what do you talk to him about, and like what would be the problem is like what I want, the information I want from him, he's not going to reveal. And so it's like, well, then what's the point of interviewing him?
You're in like a fucking, like, this is like a FBI interrogator situation. Like you have to like, you're like, this person doesn't want to talk to me about something. So I have to be like really smart about how to get them to actually talk about something they want to talk about. It sucks. Like why even go for interviews at that point?
Right. Because if anything, everybody's trying to glean information about the next book. So even when they're asking a question like, oh, what are your historical influences? You're still trying to glean information about the Winds of Winter by asking him about his historical influences. You're not just trying to get to know the guy. You don't care about that. You're trying to be like, wait, he really was he was really into Tacitus's Annals. Like maybe maybe that tells me something about what's going to happen in the Winds of Winter.
I think it would also tell me a little bit of like his writing process, I guess. I don't know. You're right that like anybody who wants to interview him is using him. Like nobody wants to know him just for his personal
There was one YouTuber who interviewed him last year or the year before that, I think, where the guy didn't ask a Song of Ice and Fire question, and yeah, I forgot the kid's name, but
what did he ask? What do you spill that time with?
I have no idea. Fuck this guy. Like I'm interviewing George, and I'm not asking him.
Some people do ask
questions.
him like writer questions, like how do you think what are the secrets of being a good writer, and stuff like that, which is just like so overly general and not applicable. Like even if you know them, like you got to try really hard. Well, really. You got to write every day,
like jerk off question. Like you're just jerking him off.
Well, I'd ask him about horses. I could ask him about horses. Oh my gosh, doesn't he like horses? Doesn't he have a ranch?
He's clearly never ridden a horse. No,
he's never. No,
his wife likes horses. His wife's huge into horses.
I don't know if he's never ridden a horse.
He's probably ridden a horse because obviously he has horses. His wife loves horses. He's probably ridden a horse.
He has never. I can tell that he's never been injured by a horse. I'll tell him that. I'll tell you that much. He's never been injured riding a horse or something like that. Because he doesn't write like that. You're afraid of horses. People that's gotten kicked by horses. Well,
I also don't think he's ever built a fire.
with cat.
Like. She's just like 2 seconds, just lit log. Like, no, like, I've never been camping. You don't put the log on immediately. Like, oh
God, sorry. I get you talking about all kinds of stuff. Oh, George. But is this thing happening? Is this the one last thing? Is like this actually happening, or is this just like a rumor that?
No. So Alt Shift he posted on his Twitter that he's like, hey, I'm gonna be in Santa Fe.
Actually, no. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he's like, he was planning on going to Santa Fe. So he's like, does anyone know how to contact George's people? I think someone did tell him how to contact George's people. He contacted George's people, and they were like, yeah, you can interview him.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the end of it. Yeah. That's the whole story.
What I think needs to happen is that George's people needs to like research the person coming to interview him to make sure they're not a crazy asshole or Steven Crowder or like any just random douchebag. So and Trey, for the most part, I feel like you could pass the research thing. I
Okay.
hope. I feel like you could. I mean, I don't think anything you
Yeah.
post is bad. Like everything you post is like wholesome and awesome. So I feel like you. And I'll be very real with you. You have as much pull as Alt Shift X. You're
Hmm.
Yeah.
big channel. You have a lot of
Yeah.
fans
Yeah.
and so forth.
Just like,
So
oh, I have a history
um,
channel, history and archaeology channel. I'd just love to. I'm going to be in Santa Fe. I was wondering if I, could interview him. That would be the end of it.
It'd be cool just
and
to
you don't need
meet
to
him. Like
travel
to.
all the way from fucking Timbuktu, wherever Ultra Effect is from. You don't need to travel all the way from over there. You can just go over there, right there, right there.
Yeah, I mean,
Also,
I'm in the same country as him at least, which is way
yeah,
easier. Yeah, yeah. I wanted to go to New Mexico to see Breaking Bad filming locations. My parents promised me they would do that with me, so maybe we knock it out,
there it
same trip.
is.
I mean, you could go see Chaco Canyon.
Yeah, I was gonna do the historic
You know,
sites too.
Santa
Mesa
Fe's
Verde.
Santa Fe's cute. It's a cute little town. Everything's Adobe.
People, it would be
Trey,
scary though to meet him. I'd be terrified. I don't know why I'd be scared of
fair.
George. I don't know,
If
being
you
a
do
famous
meet him,
person.
I have a couple of things I want him to sign, if you don't mind. Of course, I'll give
Oh,
you a pay for the trouble, but it's a couple of unscrupulous things, like maybe a fanny pack or something. But before
panties?
we
He's
All
like,
right.
he's
let
like,
you go,
why am I signing? Why am I signing like an unopened box of Fallout 76? What is this? I was like,
What if I show that to George and he's like, that's my least favorite in the series. Like he's a good player. I know
huge
he's a good
Fallout fan.
gamer.
Trey, before we let you go, I know we kept you for too long. Did you have
Yes.
anything? Last time we spoke, you had some kind of dentist equipment video in the pipe. What's going on with that?
With the dentist equipment. I'm still working. I went up to the location that I visited and I filmed some stuff, some live action stuff. So people are gonna be excited. They're gonna
Mm,
see my face in a video. And a lot of people didn't watch my face reveal, so this will be like the reveal of
the face
me, I
reveal.
guess, for a lot of people. Um, so yeah, it's been good. I've been
I
actually lately. I'm always working on like multiple videos at once. I hit up like a
oh.
local historical society because a historical figure I've been researching was like the first mayor of that town, and I angered them because I'm uncovering like awful thing like atrocities that he did before the Civil War and stuff.
Oh, I was like, I
And
thought you were
the
talking about
historical
Jerry Springer in Cincinnati, and I was like,
Oh
no.
no. No, it's like this one guy in a small town in Texas. But he basically did like I don't know, they didn't have war crimes in before Civil War, but he was basically and they're asking me like, "Oh, why are you interested in our historical figure? He was the first mayor of our town." I was like, "Well," and I was like maybe too honest with them and they haven't responded to me. I think they're like
Oh,
we but I got what I wanted out of them. I got enough information out of them.
yeah,
Um
yeah.
but yeah. That's the thing is like these towns, they got their, especially small towns, they got their historical figures and their town heroes and stuff. And I don't know, it's everything as I'm looking up is
The
true. Like
Jebediah
he
Springfield
admitted
kind
it.
of guys. Yeah.
It's a guy that
Trey,
that
I have a lot of
yes,
people that always hit me up to ask you, are you gonna do another cryptids videos very soon?
I just did the Bigfoot video. People always
They
ask
want
me about
more,
cryptids
homie.
videos.
They
I
want
know they
more. I
do.
don't know what to tell you.
The cryptids Reddit r// cryptid hates me because I'm skeptical. They don't like people that are skeptical. Anybody that's skeptical, they're like, oh, I hate this guy because they just want to be told what they want to hear. Like that's how they act. They don't like skepticism.
Yeah. Uh,
But I
I mean,
will
it's
do more. I
also
love
though like
cryptids.
no
So
matter how many videos you put out, people are going to be like, "I want more," and they're going to harass you. No matter
I
how many
know.
you could put out, you could about put out literally 2 videos every day, and they'd be like, "Oh my god, can you put out more?" You'd be like, "I put
I
out
hate
two."
this topic you did. Should do it
Right?
on this
Can you
other
put out?
topic.
Can you put out this topic that you did before, but also can you fix your mic and film it better and
Don't
And
timestamp
even
edit it better.
everything and do
Yeah,
better
don't even
yeah,
do
editing?
that.
And you're
yeah.
just like, oh my god, like I'm just
I
one
just want a different
fucking
person.
guy. It'll never
I do this.
stop.
And like a lot of times like it's I think about like what do I have enough content to make a video for, like what's worth me making a video, because these things take months to make. Like I'll have some information for a video, but is it enough for me to actually take the time to do it, you know?
We should definitely convene again next time and talk about. I want to get out. I know last time I said this is the last time we should talk about the Snow Show, but I still think you're all wrong that we need something, a sequel spinoff and
Snow.
other stuff as well. Someone was trying to convince me that we should never get Winds of Winter, which what?
That's just silly. I mean, we're not going to get Winds of Winter, but we
Stop
should get Winds of Winter.
saying-
That's,
Yes.
I mean, that's, you know, it's like we should recycle. We often don't, you know.
How old's Walder Frey? He's like 90 something. I guess he's almost 100. Okay. So I'm like thinking about Walder
He's
Frey.
90. Yeah, he's 90 years old. Yeah.
Ridiculously old man. If George reaches 90, he's got to be like, you kind of be like, come on, this is a character you wrote who's ridiculously old by your standards, and now you're his age and you haven't finished the series, right? Like, maybe he's Maester Aemon. Maybe he's gonna be 100 and whatever, 105 or how old Maester Aemon was.
Yeah, I mean George is he's 75 right now.
Okay, so he's got time. He's got time.
He's got time. I don't.
Until he's Walder Frey's age, until he's Maester Aemon's age, until he's Bloodraven's age. We'll keep him alive, hooked up.
Brain in a jar.
Brain in the jar.
A crow. Wild cards. He's gonna be in the tree.
Preston, do you want to wrap it up here, my love?
Sounds good.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you all next time. And thank you, Trey, of course. You know I love you. Come back again soon.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.